This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
In Grey County, this is another episode of Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers. I'm Fred Wallace along with Denise Reid for episode number 28. And of course, Denise is wearing a brownish top to show off the tan that you've had because you've been living very, very well on your trips. Our guest today, once again, will be Joanne Horton. Joanne is from Horton Law. And our discussion today will be about basically having a discussion with your youngsters as it pertains to your will. Our featured video today will be spotlighting Huron Hospice, which is located in Clinton. We'll be talking about Bender House when we do our featured video. And before we meet our guest, let's talk about living well, giving well, and the concept that we have for our program, Denise.
Well, 28 episodes in, a little bit surprising to me. We've come this far already. It was started, the idea with Willard Vanderploeg and Stuart Reid, Willard of the Bright Shores Hospital Foundation, Own Sound, and Stuart Reid from the Grey Bruce Community Foundation. How can we live well? How can we give well? Willpower.ca, trying to encourage people to make wills, trying to encourage people to leave money, whatever assets in their will, giving to the community, volunteering in your community. I think it's all kind of living well, giving well, right?
Yeah, and to be right up front, Denise has her passions, I have my passions and interests. We're not asking for your money or your land or your stocks for the things that we're passionate about. We're asking you to consider giving a gift to something that you're very passionate about. It might be your church, it might be your health services in your community, a community group, something at a school. So again, please make that consideration, and if you have the wherewithal and the financial ability, thank you in advance for your support. Now, to our guest, Joanne Horton, who's been with us before. Welcome back, Joanne.
Thank you for having me.
Very good. Willpower.ca is a webpage that people can visit and find out more about what we're talking about, but we've talked before, and let's start again by talking about the significance and importance of crafting a will and having a will available.
Yeah, so of course a will is a document that speaks from death, right? So you're not here to tell people what it is you want, what you want done, right? So it's important that you leave instructions because different people might have different ideas about what it is you want or didn't want. And so a will is an opportunity for you to express those wishes in a clear way.
I love that opportunity to do it, because you have the say when you're living. You have the say, you have the passions, you have the desire. Is it your family? Is it an organization? And as we've talked before in other episodes, you're actually doing your family giving them a real gift by having that organized and done before you pass away.
Absolutely.
And we talk about family, okay? Hard conversation, we've talked about that too, right?
Yes, yeah.
Nobody wants to face it. Nobody wants to talk about their death. Nobody wants to, my kids, oh yeah, okay, Mom, yeah, that's exactly what they gave. And I said, it's important that you know what we're doing and what we want. So how do you get kids to, just talking, I guess, being involved?
Yeah, and some people say, well, I trust my kids. And so they want to make them the executors and trustees. They want them to be in charge. But they may find out that maybe the kids don't want the job, really. That they might be happy if you picked either, a professional trustee, whether that's, a lawyer, accountant, a trust company to act instead. And that sometimes that's going to be something that will, avoid fights. So sometimes it's good to have those conversations to find out, or you think, oh, well, I don't want to hurt, I have 3 kids and they all get along and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so I'm going to make all 3 of them estate trustees. And then you find out, one's in Vancouver, one's in Owen Sound, and the other's in Nova Scotia, and trying to coordinate,
and
right?
Nova Scotia might not like BC.
Right. So it's a good conversation, or to say, look, we think it's going to be easier. We love you all equally, but we think it's going to be easier to have one person, and so this is how we've designed this. So that nobody has hurt feelings and thinks, well, why did they pick Tom and not me?
Yeah.
That there's no, there aren't hurt feelings after
Because
the fact.
it's a job.
It
I
is.
mean, I have to, in my personal situation, my mother-in-law passed away not too long ago. My husband is the executor, and it's a lot of work. And she had it all organized. It was all set, but the amount of work. So maybe 3 people can't quite do that, or maybe your children just shouldn't have that responsibility if they're dealing with, stress. Or there's always one person that might be of that 3 a little more business oriented to doing that. So, but I think with your families, easier if you want to keep them all still in the love category, right?
Why is the conversation so difficult for families? And using my own family as an example, there were conversations, but they were never long or never detailed. Well, one, why is it so difficult, and how frequently should you have these discussions?
So I mean, I think they're difficult because none of us want to face our own mortality. None of us really want to think about our parents passing away. And that's, it's an implied or expressed part of those conversations. And so to avoid the subject matter, generally, people often will turn away from, or they think it's difficult. They're worried that, it's going to create some sort of disagreement. But often the opportunity to avoid disagreement is actually having the conversation.
Yeah. So what happens, Joanne, we've talked about trusts, putting, the money or assets or whatever in trusts. Is that because, I mean, if children, let's say they die and your children are 15 or 16 or whatever, my understanding is it 18?
Yes.
The age that they could, here you go, you can do it. But I don't know how many 18-year-olds are mature enough for that to do it. So trusts a good thing? Setting up a trust for the children?
Depends on the kids.
Okay.
Probably most kids, if it's a substantial estate, they maybe shouldn't have control at 18. That may not be appropriate for everything to be handed off to them at that point. They don't have legal personhood till that point, so you can't. You don't have a choice about really handing over the reins before that. Sometimes you might say, well, I want to make sure they get through their schooling. So it's in trust till they're 21 or 23, 25. All of that money and resources can still be used for them, right? Because it'll say, in trust to be used for their education and support. So things they need, they may decide they want to go to Lakehead, but they also want to come home for Thanksgiving and come back south. So maybe the trustee says it's appropriate that you get a car. That would make sense in these circumstances. But you have that second oversight in terms of somebody making sure that they get to take the best advantage of whatever they've been given.
Well, Denise was in Curacao getting this lovely tan. Alex Wade was one of our guests, and we were talking exactly about this point. And the example he used was that a youngster got the inheritance and decided to follow the Stanley Cup around, and went through the Stanley Cup playoffs, and between hotels and flights and car rentals and hockey tickets, suddenly a big chunk was taken out. Maybe an IQ test is required rather than a birth certificate. In your experience, have you seen people wisely set up their will with their trusts?
For sure. I mean, it is a very important part of the conversation, and often most of my clients don't want kids to inherit at 18. They want, I see 21, 25 are common numbers, and sometimes they say, and you know what, maybe part of it at 25, and we're going to hold on to part, until they're 30. So they'll get some now, some later. But what people don't think about is they say, oh, I want to avoid probate. This is a common refrain that I hear. I want to avoid probate, right? Which is the 1.5% we pay to the provincial government when you file a will to administer the estate. So they decide, okay, life insurance, so that it's not going to be subject to probate, I'm going to name the kids directly. But that means you've handed over control at 18.
Okay.
Because there's no delay switch with an insurance policy unless you name the estate, right? So the downside, right, you're paying that 1.5%. The upside, they may get more of the money that way than if they were given outright control at 18 of the life insurance proceeds.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes a little overwhelming. But I think that's why we've talked about having a team together, have your lawyer, talk to your family, then pick somebody. I personally, when I have my son and daughter, I'm not going to have them as the exact. I don't want them to have to worry. We'll pick somebody and, whatever. We'll see as time goes, because you should be reviewing your will, right?
Probably every 8 to 10 years. So often I'll have clients who they come in often when they have newborn or very young children. They say, okay, it's time, we need to have something in place because we want to make sure that there's guardians for our kids if something ever happened. If we ever got away on vacation as a couple without the kids and the plane goes down, we want to make sure they're taken care of. And then as kids, and often at that point, it's sometimes parents and contemporaries. So brothers, sisters who are named. And that's a good plan. But as my clients age and you're now 70 or 80, well, your sister, maybe her health isn't that great. Your brother, who you thought was a good choice, maybe he's got some other things. Maybe he's moved out of the country. Yeah. And so you want to look at it and say, have I still got the right people? Do they still want the job at this age and stage?
We're going to get into some of these scenarios coming up. Actually, you've touched on a whole lot of buttons there. Before we take a break, when should I have a will? And I know we've asked you this before, and we've used the example that one of us was relatively late in life when he did it. When do you start? What would be the ideal starting spot, Joanne?
For me, one of the reasons we offer a free will with for all of our first-time home buyers is we sort of feel that often represents a stage in life where you've now got property, you're often sort of settling down, you're starting to have assets, there's things that people would need to deal with on your death. That said, home ownership, that bar is shifting a little later for a lot of people. And so probably, if you've hit your 5-year anniversary of being in the work world, you want to start looking at, let's maybe set up a plan.
So I was about 35 years late, but the good news is
next best time is now.
Yeah.
Next best time is now.
Early is best. Joanne Horton is our guest from Horton Law today. This is Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television. We're going to take a quick break and take a look at one of our featured videos for one of our sponsoring partners, and that's being Huron Hospice, located in Clinton. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned to Rogers TV and Living Well, Giving Well.
Hi, I'm Will LeGrand, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for Huron Shores Hospice. Huron Shores Hospice provides compassionate end-of-life care in a home-like environment. And in this home-like environment, they're able to live out their final days well, outside of a hospital setting that might be a little more cold and clinical. In the hospice setting, they are provided with around-the-clock care from medical and nursing staff, as well as PSWs and our comfort care volunteers. Our hospice provides a home-like environment where the family members of individuals facing end of life can simply be family members because they know that their loved ones are taken care of by our medical nursing staff and our comfort care volunteers. When they come to visit their family members, they can just be a husband, a wife, a daughter, or a friend. They no longer have to carry the entire burden of care in these final moments where what really matters is that they get to spend time with their family members. Huron Shores Hospice isn't entirely funded by the province, so we rely deeply on our community's generosity and support. There are many ways to donate to Huron Shores Hospice. Every year we host several fundraisers, our Hike for Hospice in the spring, as well as our Handbags for Hospice Gala in the fall. These are great events that bring the community together, but in addition to that, you can become a monthly donor through our monthly giving program. That way, we can count on your donations and be able to plan and budget accordingly. You're also able to make memorial donations to Huron Shores Hospice in the name of a loved one. And if you have your own idea for a fundraiser that you would like to go towards Huron Shores Hospice, we're happy to work with you to make it happen.
Hi again, everybody, and welcome back to Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television. I'm Fred Wallace, along with Denise Reid on Living Well, Giving Well, and Joanne Horton of Horton Law is our guest. We just saw a nice video for Huron Hospice and Bender House. It's been an eventful period of time for them at Huron Hospice. They had a charity hockey game in the middle of this month, which served as a great fundraiser. And also coming up on Saturday, April the 5th, there is a fundraiser. It is a memorial walk, which will be taking place on Taylor Trail in Varna. And again, you can get all the details. Just simply check their webpage, which is huronhospice.ca. Now back to our guest, and Joanne Horton. We're talking about all kinds of scenarios before we left, Joanne.
Yeah, and that was another, as we're talking, the scenario situation I was saying. So if you, leave to your children and they are married, does that money go to both their spouses as well? Like if you leave it to them, that's there.
That was my question. What if my son has a girlfriend that I don't necessarily approve of?
Right, but it is a gift to him, and so once he has it, he can do whatever he wants with it. So the benefit of a trust is you hold on to that control, right? So your trustee, they manage the money, and you can provide whatever instructions to your trustee that you want in terms of it's for her, his benefit, not their benefit. But the law does say that if, for a married couple, an inheritance is an exception in terms of money that's shared if they ever separate or to get divorced.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Oh.
So they sort of say that's a special gift, and that only works if you don't put it in the joint account.
Okay, all right.
If it goes in the joint account, then
what's one is it belongs to the other.
Because the gift was to your son.
My son, my mythical son.
But then he gave it, and it's now being joint. Bought a house or whatever, now it's joint. So it is. So it's an interesting, I'm thinking of, I always consider myself organized in that. Some people think it's control, but I call it organized. I sometimes wonder whether people, when they do the trust, is it a control issue? Or I guess it's just independent, like depends on your kids and that. Or do some people just want to make sure they're controlling it all, even after their death?
I think it's
bad?
a little bit of, I think it's a little bit, sometimes it's control, and sometimes it's because even with adult children, they have been in control and sort of controlling funds, and they want a mechanism to be able to do that when they're gone. Sometimes it's to protect their kids. If their kids receive any disability benefits through the government, if they receive a substantial outright gift, they may be disqualified.
Right.
And suddenly they get cut off until all the money's gone, and then they're back where they started. So having somebody else control it by way of a trust can allow them to augment their lifestyle without tipping them to the point where they become disqualified from the benefits they're already getting.
Right.
So sometimes it's a control issue, sometimes it's good planning.
Yeah,
good planning.
Good planning. Yeah. I guess that's, and we've talked about this lots before. Once again, it's up to people, urging people to make a will.
Mm-hmm. Step number one is have the will. I'm going to throw another scenario at you here, Joanne. There's a family, surviving father who has 4 kids. And not only does he have decent personal assets and value, but he also has a marvelous cottage. Does he have to split the cottage 4 ways, or can he leave the cottage to one and make sure that the others are looked after financially?
He can leave the cottage to one. I mean, you see that's something, the cottage and the family farm.
Okay.
Those are the 2 ones that come up because those can be big pieces of the estate plan. And so can the child who you're going to give the cottage to, can they afford to buy the others out? Are there enough other assets to make the others equal if that's something that's wanted? Or is there an understanding in the family that the family farm's really important, and that may result in one child receiving more than the others in order to preserve the family farm? Because if you said, well, it's going to be divided 3 ways no matter what, if they have to come up with 2/3 of what could be $1.5 million, $2 million for a family farm, then the reality is that could force the sale of the farm, which may be an outcome that nobody in the family wants. Even if it seems like one child may get more advantage than the others.
Does this scenario happen often? And I ask that because we're in a pretty agricultural area here
Yes.
in Grey Bruce, where we're doing this program from. Is this a frequent scenario?
Sure it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with, I mean, even pre-COVID, the value of farms became so much more substantial that trying to plan for that when you have multiple children becomes, it takes some thinking. And
Take some thinking and some communicating, because
Yes.
you want it with your children. Do you want the farm? Do you want to run the farm? Do you know I don't want any
Do you love
piece
that
of
cottage?
that?
Do you hate that
Do
cottage?
yeah.
would you use the cottage?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Right.
and it's nice to say, oh, I'll leave it to all four and they'll all figure out how everything's going to work out. But is that is that a practical plan?
Yeah, I'll take it for June or July and August. You can have it September, October.
Yeah, and it
Or December, January?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a snowmobiler.
Yeah, it's I used to work at a bank many years ago, and there was an estates department, and some of the scenarios were just sad when it came to families just not being able to cooperate with each other when it came to the estate. And I think that as I would rather try to do as much possible to alleviate that, if it's possible to do.
Sometimes you can't, right?
Sometimes it's difficult to find a workaround.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's even harder if you leave it up to somebody else, right? If you don't have those conversations to find out what might work.
And to put your kids into that situation is just, life's tough as it is, and then to not have have things cause families not to be able to be together, and that when it's over money or assets or whatever, I think is sad. And hopefully, once again, go, do you will, talk, discuss with people, your family, who do you trust to be your executor, or who do you trust to be the trustee for your kids. It's all communication and talk, and we talk that it's not that easy of a conversation to do, right?
Are we approaching an era where the youngsters or the younger in the family should initiate the conversation, or will this always be an age-old scenario whereby it's the adults or the elders that initiate the conversation?
No, I think there's lots of adult children who approach their parents and kind of say, hey, time to get on board. I don't want to find out that we're left with no plan when you're gone. And I've had middle-aged children bring in their parents and say, okay, we're ready, we're going to sit down and we're going to get this done. So I think it is a two-way street, that it can be initiated by the kids to say, like, let's get something in place so we're not sort of left adrift down the road.
And again, it comes back to the communications, because I'm sure for some of the younger people, be they male or female, the kids, they don't want to be perceived as being greedy, as trying to get into mom and dad's pocket. We want this to be straight, and I guess that's all part of the conversation that needs to happen.
But I have had kids who come in and they said, look, I've done really well. I'm kind of like a worldly entrepreneur. I actually want nothing from dad's estate. And that particular child who had brought the parent in got nothing from the estate because the other two kids in the family could use the gift. And he's like, I don't need anything, but I do want to make sure there's a plan.
Right.
That's pretty selfless, isn't it? Like
Well, and my first temptation, of course, is, no, I want to talk to dad. You can wait in the waiting room.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, just to let you know, spoiler alert, I'm not going to be in the will at all. Okay, you can sit.
Yes. Because it can be kind of self-serving or whatever. So when do you often get families to do wills, or do you usually just get individuals? Like if, let's say I say, okay, I want my kids with me. Is that usually the case, or is it usually
I will do a first meeting with family members if they want that, just so that everybody's hearing the same thing at the same time. And then I'll do a second meeting with just my client whose will I'm doing, so that I make sure that I'm getting exactly what they think without anybody else. When nobody else is in the room, do I get the same instructions?
Right. Is it rare to have the family come? Because I would think that in all of my experiences, which would be 4 wills, it was done on an individual basis and not as a group.
I've had clients come in and we do their will, and then they say, oh, and my kids are going to be in town, and they will actually come in and do a kind of a 15-minute meet and greet just to chat about things, just because they want them to be more comfortable.
And
Well,
individual, I guess it's what relationship you have, or with your kids, or whatever it is. I mean, just the communication thing, boy, it can be good or not.
It shouldn't be tough, but it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
But sometimes a place to start is just, hey, I don't know, I have this piano, or I have firearms, or I have these things, and if at the end of the day, is that something that you would want? Because people can kind of, that doesn't sound as scary as some of the times, well, how do we deal with the cottage? Well, that's the big tricky issue. So sometimes it's starting with the simple stuff, right? That people can kind of work their way into the discussion instead of kind of diving in the deep end off the bat.
That's the big.
As we wrap up today, Joanne, finally the keys to having a will, the significance of having a will, and the importance of having a will, and how people can touch base with you if they want to start or update a will.
Sure. I mean, the importance of having a will is you're not here to tell people what to do, and they may not do what you wanted to see happen, so you might as well set up a plan. It's really as much for the people you love and leave behind as it is for you, really. And if they want to get in touch with me to talk more about an estate plan or getting a will done, they can find me at hortonlaw.ca or at our office in Owen Sound across from the Legion.
All right, don't wait till you're 60. That's my advice. Joanne, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Coming up on our next program, we'll have Willard Vanderploeg joining us from Bright Shores Health Services, along with Kelly Hafling, and we'll be talking about leaving stocks and holdings in your will and leaving those to charities and organizations in our region. Thanks again for joining us today on this edition, episode number 28 of Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television, Grey County.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
With Rogers TV, you can cheer on the home team from the comfort of your living room. We'll head to the rink, the field, the court, or the pitch, so you don't have to. Tune in and cheer on your local amateur athletes on Rogers TV.
Are you a passionate content creator ready to expand your audience reach? Do you have unique stories, captivating hobbies, or special interests that deserve a spotlight? Rogers TV is here to amplify your voice within the community. We offer you the platform to broadcast your content to a wider audience. And the best part, it's completely free. Don't miss this opportunity to share your vision and engage with viewers. Find out how Rogers TV can transform your content journey today.